among teens have tripled from 2013 to 2014, according to Centers of Disease Control and Prevention. The sales of Juul, which is an e-cigarette shaped like USB flash drive, now accounts for 70% of all e-cigarette market sales. Juul contains among the highest nicotine content of any e-cigarette in the US market, with one pod, as you can see here, equivalent to one pack of cigarette of nicotine content. So here we have the Livingston community data. Back in September, during the Sweet Potato Fest, from September 21st through September 23rd, public opinion polls were collected. All surveys were collected in English, and this chart gives the demographic breakdown of all, and all participants were 18 years and over. This is the results. Participants were asked the following questions. The first one, believe flavored tobacco products are harmful to youth? 95% said yes. Believe flavored tobacco products may be more attractive to youth than non-flavored tobacco products? 92% said yes. Concerned about the sale of flavored tobacco near schools and youth group? 85% said yes. Believe the sale of tobacco near schools may increase youth tobacco use? 83% said yes. Believe communities should try to prevent youth from using flavored tobacco products? 85% said yes. Would support a local policy that restricts the sale of all flavored products, including menthol and electronic smoking device, within 1,000 feet of schools and youth serving organization? 90% said yes. So, local ordinance restricting the sale of flavored tobacco products. Restricting the sale of menthol, cigarettes, and other flavored tobacco products is a promising equity-focused strategy for countering the tobacco industry marketing tactics and reducing tobacco use, especially among vulnerable populations such as youth. So what communities can do? Local governments in California across the country have enacted laws restricting the sale of flavored tobacco. And initial evidence shows reduction in youth tobacco use in these communities. In fact, the Federal Family Smoking Prevention Tobacco Control Act allows local government to regulate tobacco product sales, and multiple courts and upheld local laws restricting the sale of flavored tobacco. So if you can open your blue folder, I mean, not your blue folder, yeah, the folders, the blue small tab. There, this chart gives a breakdown on the different communities in the state of California that have taken extra measures to ensure flavored tobacco products don't end up in the hands of youth by restricting the sale of flavored tobacco products in their community. So here you see the list of the different communities and then the restrictions on each different types of products. The first community to restrict the sale of all flavored tobacco products in California was Santa Clara County in 2010. Since then, 26 communities have passed similar policy. Just in this chart here, I had to update it because they just recently updated a week ago. 7 new communities were recently added to this list. This list continues here, as you can see. So this chart gives a breakdown of the federal and state laws with restriction on flavored tobacco products. As you can see, there are no current laws restricting the sale of menthol, cigarettes, flavored cigars and little cigars, smokeless, flavored electronic smoking device. So just briefly touching bases on comprehensive and non-comprehensive flavored tobacco prohibition. Comprehensive is a community-wide flavored tobacco restriction versus non-comprehensive, with approaches such as requiring local tobacco retail licensing, limiting tobacco retail density, setting minimum package sizes, and restricting the sale of free or low-cost tobacco products. So here, I'm going to direct you towards the yellow big tab, which is the actual Model California Ordinance restricting the sale of menthol, cigarettes, and other flavoring products, developed by Change Lab Solution. As I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, it's a statewide organization that provides legal research and analysis, as well as research and evidence base regarding consumption of tobacco products. This model ordinance offers an array of options to fit your community needs. The first section of this package will give you an introduction of the ordinance and report. If you turn to page 13, you will locate the model ordinance. Blank spaces is provided to prompt you to customize the language to fit your community needs. The ordinance also offers you choices of option, choice 1, choice 2, for example. Some of the options are followed by a comment, which is like in a gray box, that describes the legal provision in more detail. Some degree of customization is always necessary to make sure that the ordinance is consistent with a community existing law. Your city attorney or county council will likely be the best person to check this for you. So we're going to go ahead and move over to enforcement. That was the flavored tobacco restricting model ordinance. So for enforcement, jurisdiction with local retail licensing, also known as a TRL, can implement and enforce these sale restrictions through licensing. So tobacco retailer pay an annual fee to provide enforcement funds to a community jurisdiction. Communities can choose to have a 6-month delay between the day a jurisdiction adopts the ordinance and the day the prohibition goes into effect. This delay will provide tobacco retailers time to sell their existing inventory of flavored tobacco products and provides local government time to plan for implementation and enforcement. So we're going to go over to the blue big tab. This is the model ordinance for a comprehensive tobacco retailer licensing ordinance. This is to assist California cities and counties interested in establishing, strengthening a local TRL program, and further regulating the tobacco retail environment. Communities have adopted TRL laws to ensure the compliance of local business standards, reduce youth access to tobacco products, limit the negative public health and equity effects associated with tobacco use, and enforce local and existing state and federal tobacco control laws. So this model ordinance was revised just recently in June 2018. It takes a comprehensive approach to regulate the sale of tobacco products and the tobacco retail environment. The model ordinance offers cities and counties an array of options to tailor this policy to meet the needs of their community, similar to the first one that I've shown you, with blank spaces, choices, and the comment boxes that describes the legal provision in more details. So California communities with a tobacco retail licensing ordinance. This is a list. This is just half of the list. I cut a few off. This list here breaks down the basic information about the community's population, license fee, and the designated enforcement agency. So this is the big red tab sticker. So nearly 200 California cities and counties have adopted a TRL ordinance. More than 100 of these ordinances meet the criteria set by American Lung Association in California's Center of Tobacco Policy and Organizing for TRL's best practice. So the 4 criteria are: all tobacco retailers are required to obtain a license and renew it annually. The licensee fee should be enough to fund the effective administration and enforcement of the licensing program, including compliance check. 3, a violation of any local, state, or federal tobacco control law constitutes the violation of the local's license. And then 4, penalties for violation includes fines and license suspension and revocation. Okay, so this one is the purple small tab. This one, our cities and counties have also taken action to further regulate the tobacco retail environment. For example, prohibiting retailers from locating near schools, reducing the density of tobacco retailer, prohibiting tobacco sales in pharmacy, reducing a minimum package size for little cigars and cigars, restricting the sale of flavored tobacco products, including menthol. Most of these communities enforce these policies through their local TRL ordinance, underscoring the critical foundation that a TRL law provides for further regulation of the tobacco retail environment. So this one is the yellow small tab. This table gives a list of the illegal sale rates to minors before and after a strong licensing law was enacted. So these sales rates were determined by youth tobacco purchase surveys administered by local agency. The results overwhelmingly demonstrates that the local tobacco resale licensing ordinance with strong enforcement provision are effective. Rates of illegal tobacco sales to minors have decreased, often significantly, in the communities with a strong tobacco retail licensing ordinance, where there is a before and after youth sale rate data available. So here you can see the rates before the ordinance and then the rates after the ordinance. Okay, and this concludes my presentation. Daisy, do you have anything to add?
So in your packet, there's a couple different model ordinances that were put together that are just blank. So those were just laid on top of your packet. So the 2 that we brought to you to review and discussion in this workshop is there's one that focuses, and Bao kind of covered on both, but one focuses just on a flavors ordinance, so looking at flavors in your community, restricting the sale of flavors, and just looking at it from a flavors perspective. A whole ordinance would just be focused on flavors. And then the other ordinance that we brought to you is a tobacco retail license with a plug-in for flavors. So those are the 2 different kind of methods that people are using in the different communities. The tobacco retail license obviously funds enforcement locally. And then the ordinance that's just a flavors ordinance would have to be enforced by your local either police department or however you decided to go about enforcing that. But these are 2 options for how you would implement a flavored ban in your community. Are there any questions or any discussion on those ordinances?
Any questions? Any questions from public?
Come on up. Hey, Chief, can you turn the back lights on?
Good evening, Chairperson and honorable board members. My name is Paul H. Garcia. I'm a resident of Delhi, and by looking at these slide presentations and the annual fees, and I don't know how Livingston is going to be approaching the business to set these ordinances according to what some of the fees has been somewhere else. I don't know if it might be too much for the businesses here, but the percentage of the most recent youth sales rate, I mean, is that the ones that they're selling to minors or what? You know, okay. Then. And also the penalties or the fines. I didn't see a slide for that. Is there, or is that set by the city itself? Good. Okay. Thank you very much. That's all I ask.
And so as mentioned, the tobacco retail license is a separate ordinance that you can enact to include the flavored tobacco products in there. So it's just a different method of going about it. If a city decided they wanted to self-enforce and have a provision for how to fund that enforcement. So the funding, so the annual fee, for example, like in Contra Costa County is $160 annually per retailer. And then that pays for overtime pay for police officers to go out and enforce the ordinance. But that's just one of the options that you have. The other ordinance that we provided for you that's just an ordinance that restricts the sale of menthol and flavored tobacco products doesn't include the tobacco retail license provision. So that would just be separate. So this is just like one of the options that was presented so that you have kind of two different methods of going about it.
Thank you. Any other questions? Any questions, Council?
My question will be to the police chief in regards to his thoughts about this type of policy or issues with retailers selling to minors. Any information regarding that? The police chief.
Sorry. Sorry, I was talking to our clerk. Sorry. You know, I review, mustache got in the way. You know, I do review all the citation things, and I don't, very, very rare do we have citation for somebody's, but it used to actually be, several years ago, there was more. Lately, it hasn't been enforced, and we haven't really had that many issues. But I did have a question, though. You know, I do know that it was thrown out as far as policing and enforcing this. I was curious if there was any research done on what agencies actually have the police enforce these type of violations versus like code enforcement. And then you know, I don't have to say, a lot of times these, you know, products are taxed. What kind of impact to the revenue to the cities was there for each city that adopted these ordinances? I'm just curious on how that affected the budgets, if anybody knows that.
So there was a slide that, does this go backwards? Up is backwards. There was a slide that discussed who enforces it. So we do have information about who's enforcing in local cities. So you can see kind of right here, it says a designated administration for enforcing. So in different communities like Berkeley, the law enforcement and the health department work together to enforce it. Versus in Oroville, for example, there's different city officials, so it might be code enforcement is enforcing it. So it just really depends on the city and how they decide they want to go about enforcing it. And so that's why we wanted to provide that second ordinance for you that included a tobacco retail license, so you could see that if the issue is funding enforcement, that there is an option to locally fund your enforcement through overtime that could be paid through a tobacco retail license. The other thing is that there is law enforcement grants out there that may be able to help with some of those costs. I could send you those separately. They're just, and those could be done even if without a tobacco retail license or anything else. And then in terms of the cost, I don't know if specifically we have the information about the taxation costs on the flavored.
Impact to the municipal budgets on if there was any like major loss of revenue or things like that. And again, I support what you guys are doing,
Yeah.
that's great. I just want to see how, the bigger picture, how that impacts our city.
Yeah, I don't have the information with me today. We could definitely provide that to you. But the ordinance that we're looking at would just be the flavored tobacco products. So it'd be looking at just the flavored tobacco products that would be sold in the community. And I don't necessarily have that. I'm thinking there may be information out there that I can provide to you. But we do know that focusing, like the tobacco retailers kind of can have other viable options to kind of fill that need, because this would just be taking out the flavored tobacco products out of their stores so that we create an option for young people not to have that in their hands. So I can provide that for you maybe.
Any other questions from the public? All right, we'll bring it back to council. I do have a comment. Thank you for your presentation. I am highly interested in, keeping away flavored products from our kids in the community. That's one of our treasures of the community. If we could keep, I looked up there and, I saw a lot of things that are catered to vanilla and juice box stuff that kids, would think, hey, this is candy or it's, good for you. And it's a shame that the tobacco companies, are targeting our kids to, profit and make $1. So shame on them. So I think it's a war and a battle to keep our kids, safe. So I would be in favor of, at least the flavored tobacco products. If you're an adult and you choose to smoke, then, so be it. That's on you. But we sure need to keep our kids and our youth safe in our community.
So basically it comes down to, our youth and how we are going to help our youth, steer them away from something that at the end of the day, if we don't do this, we're going to end up paying, down the road with healthcare costs. So one way or another, we're going to be paying for it. And so as you can see by their presentation, this is very deliberate. For those in the audience who just showed up, they're showing a real juice box, a juice box of apple juice, and what's next to it is actually vape juice that looks exactly like the other one, and it's basically harmful for you. So what can we do as a community to kind of help these young folks, move away from using e-cigarettes that are very harmful for them? And so the California Health Collaborative, who just made a presentation, this is their second presentation, is basically providing council tonight some model ordinances. One that just tackles the juice flavored, vape juices, versus doing a more comprehensive, which would be looking at coming up with a fee structure to do enforcement. Okay, so what we're asking the community and the council is to, kind of, look at this and give some direction so that we can model an ordinance or not, and so that's where we're at tonight. So any input from the public would be very welcome at this time.
Public comment? Okay. Well, thank you very much for your presentation. And do you guys want to give any direction or?
Well, right now, I think with 3 new members coming in, I think it would be best to leave it to the new council makeup to decide where to move forward. Because I think we got 1 meeting and maybe not, we don't know how it's gonna work out. Ordinance takes 2 readings, so, I think we need to just hold off to the next councils get seated.
So, so in terms of staff direction tonight is, we'll look at inviting you guys back. We actually do have some council member elects here in the audience that came in, and so you have an opportunity to meet them. Certainly, if you're interested in picking up a packet, we'll make sure to give those packets to you, and we'll schedule you for another meeting, probably the second or the first meeting after the first of the year. So we'll be in contact, and I very much appreciate you guys coming out and presenting, okay? Oh, my pleasure.
Thank you. do not suggest that we do advanced grid services here because of the size of the city. But we are looking at some generation, specifically solar in a number of facilities. So our progress to date, we've surveyed 32 facilities. We've gathered and evaluated utility data, both in electricity, gas, and water usage. We've done some sensitivity analysis on the new rate change. We've identified potential measures. We created what-if analysis as a measures by measure, and we assembled an energy program that I think works with you and the city that I think you're going to be pretty interested in as we move forward.
So an overview of what we found. So the 32 facilities, here's a list of them. I know it's kind of hard to read, but basically we covered all the city buildings like parks, well stations, the wastewater treatment facility, and buildings like this one, and the fire station, police stations, I mean, all the city-owned buildings. You know, here's some of the stuff that we found is kind of at a high level. The major three were lighting, HVAC, and controls, as well as aging infrastructure on the pumping equipment, and then the irrigation systems at the parks, which is a big water consumption. So when we talked about, Reggie mentioned the train optics. What that is we take the utility data and we run it through a simulation, which gives us an idea of how the buildings or the energy profiles are performing. So what you see here is actually the hour of the day on an axis, on the across the one axis, and then every day of the year along on the left-hand side there. So what you get to see is kind of as the usage goes up during the day and down, it paints a profile of, you know, how is that building optimized. And you can see there's a lot of facilities where you're getting lots of spikes, there's not much control. But what we use this data to really drive our analysis to determine, you know, what are your high energy consumption buildings, which has the most opportunity. So when you think back to that pyramid that Reggie was showing on the dollars per savings, it's like, what's your best bang for your buck? We can focus in, and that, especially for a city that has multiple, 32 buildings, it's like, where do we begin? And really what this shows is that we make all our decisions around the data that we determine from the site walks and from the utility bills. So overall, to give you.
By the way, Patrick, the model also incorporates 15-minute intervals of power usage, correct?
Correct.
Exactly. That's what.
So if you can explain that a little bit, that would be great.
Yeah, so that's what I was showing here, that each one of those points is a 15-minute interval data, a point of your KW, like from your energy meters. That's pulled right from PG or MIB's utility bills for the city. So that's just a graphical form of showing the actual usage.
So this is 24 hours essentially here, and every one of these little micro dots in between on this one little sliver.
They're not hearing them at home, so they need to.
Can you use the microphone, please? Because we have the community, it is televised, so they're not able, if you don't speak into the microphone, they're not able to hear you at home. Thank you.
I can't speak really loud and have everybody hear me at home.
No, we have folks.
I've teased it.
You have a handheld.
No, that's okay. I'll try and stay in front of the microphone. Thank you. Essentially, what he was referring to is that we have 24 hours in a day, and every one of those little spikes is like 15-minute data that we're using to analyze your buildings.
Yeah, we refer to it as like an MRI on your building. So it's a way of, at a low cost, being able to prioritize each building's facility based on their usage and how they're optimizing their energy profile. So that being said, the overall spend for those facilities we looked at between the two utilities was almost 900,000 in electricity, another 5,000 in gas, which was not a big consumption for gas, but then another 110,000 for the water, and that's the majority of that is the parks and the irrigation.
So one of the things I mentioned earlier in the presentation was PG&E and eventually MID will be going through what we call rate redesign. And without going into too much detail here on this particular issue, essentially they're moving the peak demand from midday, which it was for the last 30 years, into a 4 to 9 time frame. So where your consumption is from 4 to 9 will be your peak, and where it was from like 11 to 5 used to be peak, but due to the amount of solar that has been on the grid, it actually has shifted the PG&E and eventually MID's profile of how they serve the actual the communities that they serve. So right now in 2020 is when this shift is going to take place, and all of our analysis has been based upon that rate redesign versus what historically has been. And the reason we do that is because we don't want to over-project or under-project the savings that are going to be associated with your future based upon looking in the rearview mirror. We want to look forward to the rate redesign and how it's going to affect you.
Could you go back to the slide before that? I had a question on the water. It was the 109,617. Is that what it costs to pump water to the parks, or is that what we're spending on watering the parks?
Yeah, that is directly from the utility of what you're spending on water. So it would be the actual cost of the water. The pumping would is within the electricity number.
Okay, thank you.
So we looked at your, he's the energy engineer. We looked at your energy consumption and cost today and what we anticipated to be under the new time of use rate. And we used that 15-minute data before to actually compare the two to see how you're using your buildings today and how you'll, if we use them the same way, what those individual or collectively, how it would change this. In this particular case, there's about a 7% increase in your utility spend if you did nothing and you essentially just let rate redesign take place in your facilities.
Yeah, and just to add to that, it's because when we look at those profiles, there's a lot of evening 4 to 9 usage at a lot of the, you look at us tonight, here you're using energy. So typically if you have a school that is operating from, 8 till 3, their bills will go down with the new rate structure. But given the profiles, yours goes up 7%. So there's an increase of not even doing anything, but that's the new baseline before we get into the measures we're recommending. But as a high level, lighting, interior and exterior, we looked at across the city of all the different lighting fixtures and put a scope together to include replacement of all the existing lightings that hasn't been converted to LED lighting already. From an HVAC standpoint, a lot of units are past their useful life and need to be replaced. That was one of the immediate needs that we've noticed when we came into the city. So with replacing those units to more high efficient units, as well as reducing maintenance and operational costs, and then along with that, putting an energy management system. So being able to tie in all those systems together in one place, be able to control them. When you look back at those graphs, it'll be a tighter profile because the units won't be left on over the night when no one's there, and having them cycle through the evening, you're able to control them all from a central unit. Water. It's a great picture there on the left-hand side showing how green and nice the grass is here, but it obviously is a cost. And when we looked at the utility bills and the way the irrigation is currently being used, there's a bit of overwatering, and there's opportunities to put that on schedules and put on systems to reduce that usage and still maintain the parks the way they are. So there's different kinds of systems that we've looked at for water. We mentioned the well waters and the wastewater treatment plant, putting variable frequency drives and recommissioning the plants to operate more efficiently. Putting these drives on pumps will reduce the speed of them and ultimately save energy. And Reggie mentioned renewables. We've looked at, under the new rates, we looked at multiple sites of where we can put either car parks or ground-mounted PV systems. So here's an example of some different locations where we've done some energy models of the different locations. I don't know if you want to go over the...
All right. So, as we accumulated this information, we did some rough order of magnitudes. We did a preliminary analysis, and we pulled together what we believe this project is the economics of this particular project. Essentially, we believe that this base project, including everything that you said before, Patrick, in the slides before, is about a $5.6 million project with annual savings of about $465,000. We will confirm that in our investment grade audit. We'll confirm the base cost as well. But those economics show a $4.8 million positive cash flow over 20 years as you look at the pro forma there. That assumes a 15-year financing at 4.5%. So what we've tried, that's above and beyond all the payments that are associated with financing the 5.6. So, next slide. I'm sure there's going to be questions about that. Other potential projects that we are looking at from the city's perspective is the decorative lights that you've already started on this side of the freeway. Taking it over to the other side of the freeway, I think 2 or 3 blocks down the street. We kind of outlined that in this picture to the right. Also, you're finishing up the water meters that you've implemented over the last few years and wrapping that up in there. Additional HVAC units and installation in some of the pump houses to keep your existing electronics viable for more years, because if you've ever been to one of these pump houses that are uninsulated, which this one on the bottom is, it's very hot in there, and electronics do not like very hot. So we're looking at possibly adding additional cooling to keep those electronics and your investment in those electronics viable for many, many years. That, those economics don't add any savings, and they will add cost that we're trying to articulate and trying to get our arms around. But we think that's going to be plus or minus $3 million to do that. So
there's no energy savings. Actually, the lighting is going to increase the energy savings, or energy use. But there's other benefits, like you said, useful life of the equipment and different things on the pump houses.
So what's next? We really need to do a deep dive with Brad as well as Jose to work on the funds allocation methodology. We need to select as a council and as a city. Do we do the base or do we do a base plus? And what is our path forward there? And we need to sign a letter of commitment to Train, authorizing Train to do a finalized scope and savings, refine the installation cost, develop a pro forma that is solid and wrung out, and present the guaranteed savings and proposal and move forward. So what the schedule is that we'd like to move forward with is, we'd like to, in the next 30 to 45 days, to finalize the scope and savings, to refine those costs, refine the cost with those proposed scope. And these are not cumulative, but additive to each other. And then present the final investment grade audit and energy services agreement within the next 120 days. Questions?
Yeah, I have a question. So, one of the things that that Brad and I have been talking about with Train, besides keeping apples with apples when it comes, well, you know, I'll just use a simple example. Let's just say a bunch of savings, and then take that savings and apply it to everything that we have around the city. You can't do that. You know, the funding has to be separate, okay? And so I won't mention any names, but that's some of the mistakes that other municipalities have been doing. So when we put together this comprehensive, you know, RFP, we wanted to make sure that that was part of the overall thinking. So that's number one. And then number two, there is no difference for us in terms of water and energy, because to us, water is energy. And so we wanted to make sure that that was part of the overall scope. And then number three is we want to make sure that from the savings and the pro forma and looking into the future, that we are not paying on a debt beyond the useful life of an equipment. So if this is my HVAC unit and the useful life is 20, but I'm paying it out over 30 years, why would I want to have, you know, others pay for that last 10 years if I can only get 20 out of this? So our job is to make sure that we look at all of everything that's going to be proposed, that the useful life is within reason associated with the financing. So again, we're looking at the savings that'll be generated by incorporating new, efficient, and then the new models, but also what the useful life is of each proposed element. Got it?
You're exactly right, Jose. And those standards are published and industry standards. So I can tell you that anything that we would propose will be in that vein, if you will, using industry standards, both ASHRAE, lighting standards, solar standards, all of those things will come into play. And we'll have those frank discussions and I think that's what we've had in the past, and I know that we'll have those in the future.
And then the other thing too, as you all know, solar was very big, okay? Well, given the fact that that one of the slides that they just mentioned about the new, you know, on-peak and peaks changing, okay? Solar is no longer as big as it used to be. So we have to look at everything. It doesn't mean that solar is not going to be part of this our overall savings, because it will be, but keep in mind that solar, you need to have, when you generate it, unless you have batteries that store that energy, you can't have access to it. Okay, and so there's a lot of moving parts, and so for us, I just wanted to let everybody know that we're looking at all of those moving parts, and we're looking at it individually, but also comprehensively. So whatever decision that the council makes at the end of the day, it's going to benefit the Livingston residents, and that we will be having savings moving into the future so that we can keep the cost from not going up, but, curving. So,
And I
thank you.
think that's why you selected train and the way that we, no, I mean, that's the forward-looking that we had articulated to you and that we will continue to articulate, is not looking through the rearview mirror to, but also looking through the windshield to make sure that we're doing the best thing that we can for the future.
Yeah, I know that our finance director might want to say a few words. Brad, do you want to share a few things?
Hi, Brad. Reggie Ingram, I haven't actually had the pleasure of meeting you.
No, I think, Jose, you articulated very well what we've been concerned about and what we've been working on. I would like to ask another question, though, that I kind of doubt anybody has an answer to, but nonetheless, I'll put it out there just for the benefit of the audience, and maybe Train would like to respond to it. And that is, given the current fires that we have seen with the Camp Fire and the Woosley Fire, and the rumblings that maybe that's part of PG&E's liability, just any comment on what increase in rates to cover those liabilities might do to a proposal like this?
Well, I'd like to answer that question, and I cannot. I wish I did. Now, that question has been asked to us up north because of some of the YOLO fires that were happening up there, and whether that liability that they have or perceive they have will affect the prices moving forward. I don't believe they have the legal right to utilize rate increases for those purposes to mitigate their liability in whether it be fire or any other catastrophe that was caused by them. But I'm not the legal authority on that, so.
You have any questions, Council?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I thought the governor signed it that the liability can be passed on to the ratepayers.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
I thought the Governor Brown signed it to where PG&E can dump the liabilities onto the ratepayers. I thought it was signed already.
I haven't seen that legislation. If that is the case, you've got more reason to actually do energy efficiency projects.
Yeah. Brad, am I correct in this, or didn't Governor Brown sign this already? The liability?
Vice Mayor, I can't say for a fact. I did hear rumblings about that, and I know there was something on the ballot measure in November that was going to kind of take it out of PG&E's bailiwick, but I can't say for a fact which way it's gone. Maybe our
thought he did.
council would know.
We'll check, but that's just another unknown equation we have to deal with. We don't know what's going to happen. Or are they going to dump they're going to put the liability on the investors first, then whatever's left over goes, we don't know what's going to happen yet,
Yeah, so that basically, puts a little more urgency on us on making improvements where we can, where there's a cost savings, so that we don't burden even more by, the increased energy costs.
And to give a breakdown of the utility, of that $1 million, it's about 50-50 between PG&E and the
MID.
MID. And then, so the solar portion, is off the top of my head, I believe was about 30 to 40% of the overall usage from the initial sites we've looked at. So it would be offsetting quite a bit of the PG&E usage. So that's another. So less dependence on that.
I'm going to open up if there's any public comment or questions.
Catherine Shaw Rodriguez, P.O. Box 163. Brad beat me to the question about PG&E, but my second question would be about the state trend towards pushing to have the majority, if not all, of energy provided by renewables within the next, 10 to 15 years ago? And I was wondering if you could touch on that trend and how it would affect us.
Well, I think you're seeing a big push in that direction, of course, right? Without getting too deep into that discussion, there are a number of organizations that are being built today called CCAs. I don't know if a CCA is in this particular area, but it's a community choice aggregation. And think of it as a mid-step between a investor-owned utility and a municipal utility that has the responsibility to provide energy, and typically 75 to 100% of the energy that the community choice aggregation procures for their citizens and their constituents would come from renewable technologies. PG&E and the investor-owned utilities across the state would have the obligation to have distribution and transmission, but essentially the CCAs would buy the renewable, which offers some future opportunities, I would guess, in the advanced grid services arena that I'm not prepared to talk with you about your facilities today, because you just don't have enough load to play in that open market yet. But yeah, there's a big trend towards CCAs and renewables. Unfortunately, the renewables that most people are thinking of is solar, and solar is a resource that is being produced in the day, but not at night. And that's why you see that rate redesign to go from 4 to 9. So.
Thank you for your questions. Do we have any other comments or questions? No? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Again, this is a subject matter that is complex, and that's why everything that we've done to date has been comprehensively to just look at this from all angles so that we make sure we make the right decision. So thank you.
Thank you again, and we'll be moving forward to announcements and reports. I see Supervisor Espinoza in the audience.
Good evening, Council, Mayor and Council. Well, first of all, I want to congratulate everybody that ran in this year's election, and however it stands in the end, and praise the people that won. So even across, California and the United States, I think it's an experience for people to run and to get out the votes. Today, I want to, thank the board for approving my reappointment of my Planning Commission, Fernando Aguilera, to the Merced County Planning Commission, and his term will end until 2022, so it's a 4-year term. Also, too, we approved Kurt Spicer for District 4 out of Alico, and he's a good person. And we also approved a contract to a company for 16.7 acres for acquisition of the California tiger salamander and kit fox for habitat credits. So that's what we purchased, and at a cost of $1.67 million. And that is just to replace a little bridge in part of the county. I know it's a lot of money, but that's in the state that we live on. And we had a company that complained about that in another part of the county because they had it at $160,000, but the county had to pay $1.67 million because the other company that was 10 times less didn't meet or wasn't approved by the state. It was only federal, so we had to pay a lot more. And that's unfortunate, but 80% of that will be from federal funds. It's still taxes that come from state, from all our taxes, but that's just unfortunate. That's the way that things are. And I know they questioned it. They didn't want us to approve it, but we have no choice. Sometimes, even though it seems like outrageous and, but things, otherwise you fix a bridge or not. So it's a major arterial in our county, and it had to be done. So we also, we approved to remodel some veterans halls, some remodels, and HVAC system at the Merced VFW. But while leaving, it was Merced, Los Banos, went to Atwater, living out Livingston, and I made a statement that, I know that we only have $1.6 million to do some of that, of those fixtures, but like I say, as soon as we have some more funds, we'll be looking at fixing Livingston as well, because I know that's pretty, it needs some more updates on the one in our city. Also, some park improvements were done to meet ADA compliance, upgrades at several parks, Houlihan Park, which is in my district in Planada, and also 2 Henderson Park in District 4 in Henderson Park, I think it's in Snelling. And so we had long discussions on that I put an agenda item on well permits from our county, especially some farmers from around Livingston that had issues from a well driller in the county. At one point, there was 57 well issues that people were taking from their deposits, and they weren't getting done. And even after the ordinance was implemented by the county in 2015, their permits expired, and I think most of them got drilled, but except for a few of them. And now I think the district attorney got some of those cases, and they were able to negotiate with the driller, and so he could pay it back. So I think they're in the process of paying back most of the people that were taken, so that prevent, I guess, from him going to jail or less. So I also would like to report that I received an invitation to attend the Well Untapped Well Education for Latino Leaders. It's a membership of 6 months. That's 1 week in a month, and where we get educated on water and projects and infrastructures across California, and all the expenses will be paid. And where I had to write a letter and interviewed in order to be accepted. So all the expenses and the flights across California will be paid by Well. And I think that's all I have, unless anybody has any questions. And hope everybody has a good Thanksgiving and a safe one. Any questions from the public? Council? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Supervisor, and happy Thanksgiving to you and your family. Moving forward, we'll move on to city staff announcements and reports.
Someone's delegating.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, members of the public. My name is Engineer Daniel Rodriguez with the Merced County Fire and Livingston City Fire Department. Tonight I'll be going over our activity report for October, as well as some of the events that we did and took place in October. So for October 1st through October 31st, the city incidents, we had 68 medical aids, 1 vegetation fire, 6 vehicle accidents, 1 vehicle fire, 1 structure fire, 2 debris fires, 5 alarm soundings, 4 public assist, and 2 hazmats. For the county incidents, we had 19 medical aids, 4 vegetation fires, 14 vehicle accidents, 4 vehicle fires, 9 structure fires, 2 debris fires, 4 alarm soundings, and 1 hazmat. So far for 2018, our summary, we've had 1,420 incidents. 850 incidents are in the city, which is up 13.3%. Incidents in the county are slightly down 3% at 570. Our PCF response is 66%. PCF response to the station is 10%, and incidents within Livingston's initial area are 1,091. For October, the paid staff trained on ropes and knots, and our volunteer staff trained on RIC, also known as our Rapid Intervention Crew. With the time change, we always like to remind the members of the public and anybody that we need to remember to change our batteries every 6 months. Even if it's not making any kind of sound, we'd like to recommend you changing the batteries. Also, a lot of people don't know that the lifespan of the smoke detectors are 10 years, so we recommend after 10 years to inspect your smoke detectors and, if needed, replace them. Also, with the winter coming and the weather getting cooler, we'd like to remind people to have precautions and safety measures in place for their fireplaces. Here's some of the stats and some of the things we recommend. Something that stood out to me is the 36% residential home fires are caused by fireplaces annually, which is a pretty high number. So I'll go over the few maintenance tips down there at the bottom left. We recommend you regularly check if anything is blocking the chimney. Sometimes animals like to get in there and hide in there, so look up there and double check that no animals or anything's blocking it. Trim the trees that are above the chimney. There's high heat that comes from the top of the chimney, so make sure that there's no tree limbs or anything that's close that could potentially catch fire. Clean the chimney when a quarter of it is blocked. So we want to make sure that we have a nice open chimney that allows the heat to go out and nothing inside the chimney heats up and catches fire. Have your fireplace inspected by a certified chimney. Excuse me. Have your fireplace inspected by a certified chimney sweep at least once a year, and use dry and seasoned hardwood. So every year annually, the PCFs and the paid staff, we do standby by the Livingston High School. So here's a couple of our pictures of us doing standby for the football players and any injuries to the football players or the public. And overall, it was a very good year and very successful year. Want to take over?
Gonna add one more to your call, huh?
Sorry, I had to bring this down a little bit. He's a little taller than me. That's one way to get out of it, huh? All right, so this year we did the trunk or treat, right here downtown with the Public Works and a couple police department, and it turned out really good. Here you can see some of the volunteers that were helping out, passing out candy to the kids. Even had a city council member helping out, passing out candy. The safety fair at Shelby School, we just talked about some of the safety precautions, especially for kids, what to do if they see a fire, who to talk to. And we gave out some of the helmets that the kids always love. And then when we did a presentation also, I believe this was a second grade class that he did. They called and asked us to come over to do a presentation out by the engine, so we went out there, spent about 30 minutes with the kids, show them the engine, and talking to them about some public safety stuff. And then this last one was the Veterans Day Parade. Right afterwards, we did the whole parade, and we had a good soup afterwards with City Mayor Pro Tem, Mayor-elect. And One thing we've been trying to get to, and we finally got to it, which was the training burn. So it turned out really well. The burn went really good. Everybody, I wasn't personally there, I was on vacation, but everybody that I heard that was there learned a lot. We had some of our own volunteers that were working there or training there. And so here are some pictures of the burn. And that's the end of our report. Any questions for the calls that we had this month?
Any questions? All right, thank you for your report. Appreciate your service.
Thank you.
Any other staff?
Looks like Mario's coming.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, members of the public. The CDBG water line project did start. You may have noticed that here on D Street, some of the lines have been marked, and the pavement was saw cut today. I don't believe there will be a lot of activity tomorrow because it's supposed to rain, and it's Thanksgiving week, so you'll see some more activity next week. Excuse me. Also, the TCP project for the plant at Well 16 should be advertised in the near future. The agreement with the state probably will come in December, so sometime soon after it should be advertised. And so we're trying to push those forward as fast as we can. And that's all I have tonight, and I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mario. I do have a question. So the TCP, I'm sorry, the water line is going down D Street, right?
The water line is right here on D Street.
D Street, okay. In the past, the problem with D Street and 8th is that those people on the corner of 8th and D Street don't have sewer lines over there. Is there a way, or I'm not sure if there's going to be there can be an added sewer line next to it? Because we've talked in the past, I know, Paul, that those people want the sewer line through there, and that's the problem, or the reason that those lots are not being infilled is because they don't have sewer line access, because the existing sewer line exists from before when the city was a city. And I think when back in when Supervisor what was it, Gloria Cortez Keene, she came over, and when she said that those lines have been put under the line it's all clay, and they go under the homes. Even Royce Oria's home, the line goes under those homes, and that's the only sewer line. It's about that round, and actually the house in the corner, it broke one time, and the sewer was coming out. So that's why I'm bringing it up, is because there needs to be another line next to that water line, if it's possible or permitted, so that we can have better sewer capacity, sewer to access to those homes on D Street all the way to that church over there past 8th Street, because that's the only way that will be easier for those empty lots to we're trying to do infill instead of growing outside the city. So that's one of the reasons that I'm bringing it up, is that we can develop these empty lots, and they'll be able to sell a lot faster. And
Mr. Mayor?
So, thank you.
Yeah, one of the things I know Mr. Ramirez would tell you is I've been trying to work on getting infill lots done. So I don't know, we didn't think about this, and thank you for bringing it up. I don't know if there's anything to be done about this at this stage, or what Mario, do you have any?
Yeah, let me chime in.
Yeah, okay.
So we went after, this is through a CDBG grant, and so there's only so much money that you can apply for, and from that funding that we were actually successful in obtaining, we carved out money to address the water lines. So the future CDBG grant requests, we're hoping to, hopefully land some money to address the sewer. The sewer, yeah, I know exactly what you guys are talking about because we've actually had some internal discussions on that, in that, if we could just have a sewer line, private development has not been able to do it because it's too costly. And there's interest of building some multifamily housing in some of those properties out there. But because of that, of the situation with the sewer, it's kind of cost prohibitive. So therefore, it would be important for the city to step in. And so right now, we're looking for funding sources. We just don't have the funds to be able to just go out there and do it. So we're actively looking for funding, and that is on our priority list, Supervisor. And yes, we know exactly the area, and there's actually, it does go either underneath certain homes or right by their backyards.
And I'll just add a little something to this. There was a CDBG application for sewer submitted about a year ago, and that one was unsuccessful.
That's right.
But it was actually the next one to be funded. They ran out of funds, CDBG did. So that will be re-scoped and re-submitted at this new period that has actually started. So.
Mr. Mayor?
And it's in the general area that we're talking about. I don't know if it's exactly that. Those grants are limited. They're driven by income. So I think it's in that area. I'm not absolutely positive, but they have a lot of, you can just go do it wherever you want. So there's a lot of restrictions in areas if you want those grants. But I think this one area is actually in the low-income area of the
Census
city.
tract.
I think it is.
What I'm just saying is that we lay another line right next to the water line because it's already going to be dug in. So just like we've talked about in the past of bringing down a line down Main Street from south of Hammett. It's going to come down, so you lay down, 2-3 lines for different services. And that's what I'm talking about. We're going to have the CDBG, but, the other line will be, it's already dug, we'll just place it next to it.
We understand.
I don't know if the city has to spend $100,000, $200,000 now, but all those improvements and all those homes and developments would maybe millions of dollars, and that would pay for itself in a few years. So that's just.
Yeah. Well, and the city engineer can certainly share with you, but the line in question that we're talking about and the orientation of where the sewer lines are don't necessarily warrant a joint trench in this area based on the scope of the project. But it is a priority area for us, and we are looking, and like you said, we already submitted, but we weren't successful. But we're going to resubmit, and we're going to rescope, but that is a priority area for us.
And just to answer your question on laying a water line next to a sewer line, you cannot do that. There's Department of Health regulations. You actually have to have 10-foot separation. So would have to be a different trench, which will be addressed in the next round of applications.
You had a question, Vice Mayor?
No, I think,
Oh, okay. Any other questions? All right, thank you, Mario.
Thank you.
Any other staff reports?
I thought I'd give a brief update on what's been going on in the planning and building areas. First, there's been a lot of activity with our residential subdivisions. We have 5 located in various parts of the city. They're all undergoing activity. The 2 of them are almost sold out. They're still building, but they've been pre-sold, and that is the La Tierra or Beck homes and the Sun Valley homes. That those have very few unsold lots, and so those were our first 2 that really kicked off, and so naturally they are the ones that are finishing up. Are the legacy homes located kind of in the northeast area of the community. They're actively building, and they've got quite an inventory, so they'll be with us for a bit. And the country villas for the Bright Home development is just starting with their plans coming into the building department for review. And then kind of in the middle of the city, the around the mansionettes, around the park there, and along Prusso, those are starting to build as well. That's taken a little bit of time to get started, but they are underway. So all 5 unbuilt subdivisions that we had 2-3 years ago are actively being built by either successor builders or, in one case, the same builder. And movement is happening on that area. In the commercial area, an ARCO, AM, PM, fueling station, mini mart, quick service restaurant, sit-down restaurant, all of a big combination. I'm going through the environmental document now so it can be released to the public for comment in compliance with state regulations, and then that'll be ready to go through the Planning Commission, and it does come to you as a site plan design review permit. So those are moving forward, and again, that's at the intersection of Campbell and Hammett, right there on the freeway on an off-ramp. And lastly, since it's topical because there's some items on this council, let's talk cannabis. I do have an active application in for a phase 1 cannabis permit. It's for manufacturing, distribution, warehousing. And so that will, phase 1, as you might recall, is an administrative review of the application by the police department and by the planning department. If it passes the basics, then it goes to a full public hearing before the planning commission. So that is coming to a conclusion for the administrative process. So we'll be going to the planning commission probably at the end of January, early February at the latest. And so that's moving forward. And there is a request related to cannabis that will come to you. It's a request to modify some of the details of our cannabis ordinance. And so that's a policy decision on your part, but I'll bring that to you so you can decide whether it has any merit or not. But that is, an application has been filed, a request has been made, and so I'll bring that to the council and, with the background material and let you decide. So by no means there is not any winter pause or anything of that nature. There's a lot of things happening, and not all of them are going to the Planning Commission or to the council, since many of them are implementation of approvals and actions that these bodies have done, that with the build out of the residential subdivisions and the like. So that's kind of highlights of what's been going on the last several months. Any questions?
Questions? Any public questions?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council, councilman-elect, and members of the community. No formal presentation today, but just a couple of things. I'm not growing this mustache to look more debonair. This is Prostate Cancer Awareness Month. It's Grow a Mo for a Bro. So our wellness committee has done a great job educating our department. And I want to thank Deanna, Dana, Jesus, and Connie. I believe that's it. They're doing a lot of educations and ensuring we're aware. So anybody that's not aware, this is Prostate Cancer Awareness Month. Any men over the age of 45 should have their prostate checked between 2 and 4 years, depending on the number count, between 1 and 3. So it helps. Two things. This month and starting for next year, our department will be wearing our legacy patch from 1960. We're calling it a retro patch. So the patch I'm wearing on this uniform is from the 1960 police patch, and we started wearing police patches. It's exact replica. We do have some extra patches that we're selling at the police department if anybody's interested in, because after next year, they're going to go away. And a lot of times patch collectors like to collect those and have them for their collection. Lastly, we had a grant with Rite Aid, and we do now have a depository for unwanted or expired medications in our lobby, open pretty much 24/7. And so we still will participate in the National Drug Take Back Day in April and October. However, anybody that has those medications are free to bring it to the police department and put it into the lobby depository. We will not take items such as syringes, illegal narcotics, aerosols, things like that. We will take medications, whether they're expired or unwanted only, and we prefer that versus other ways to dispose of them. So, on that, just want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving, and I hope you guys eat lots of turkey. So, be happy to answer any questions. And thank you for those that attended the Rotary crab feed.
Chief, I think you look awesome with that mustache. You could carry that into December and beyond.
December 1st it comes off. It's too white.
I really think, that gives you character. I mean, a mustache on a chief, it really goes a long ways,
All right, well, I think it's,
Yeah.
okay, I appreciate
It
that.
projects authority.
Yeah.
It projects authority.
Thank you for that. I haven't had it for over 10 years, and I just realized it's too white, so but lastly, thank everybody who supported and attended the Rotary Craft Feed. It was a great time, excellent event for our community, and they had a lot of fun, a lot of crab. So we go from crab to turkey. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief. If you could save me 2 patches and then also one of the ones from October. Can we pick them up 8 to 5 or?
Sorry. Yeah, anytime we're there or basically during business hours I'm there or Deanna's there.
All right. Thank you, Chief.
Okay, thank you.
Any other staff reports? All right, we'll move forward to city manager announcements and reports.
Yes, Honorable Mayor and Council and Councilmember-elects. So what I have before you is the Bright Development, which is one of the firms who purchased the Country Villas, which is over there by Dwight. They've recently submitted 4 different models, basically a master plan, and staff is going to be reviewing those, and so they're going to get going out there pretty quick. In addition to that, the medical clinic out here, the medical campus, some of the neighbors in that area have experienced some issues out there, which I would characterize as vibration claims, because when they were out there compacting, there's some cracked on some sidewalks, some sheetrock, and then also some of the stucco. So I've gone out there with the Public Works Director. What we can do is limited, but wanted to be helpful, and so we made contact with the contractor on site and their claims adjusters and so forth, and we kind of funneled the people so that they can, directly submit a claim and do what they have to do. But again, because of the residents are claiming that because of the compacting of the soil over there by the clinic, that they experienced these cracks in their foundations and whatever else. So that's what's going on there. And as you've have seen, our code enforcement team has done a lot around town. Again, with the understanding that we're trying to work with the residents. We're not trying to be heavy-handed. We want to be, very respectful but see some progress from the residents. And so there's been a lot of participation from a lot of folks, and I think we've been moving in the right direction, in addition to the vehicle abatement enforcement that PD has been doing. First impressions mean a lot, and I think others start to take a little more pride in making the community look a little bit better. So, so if you have any other questions for me, I'm more than happy to take them.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Ramirez, on the Livingston clinic project,
Yes.
I know they're doing the off-site improvements on B Street. There's a section in the middle that's been cut and all that. Are they gonna plan to redo the whole thing, or are they just gonna fix that piece that they've cut?
Are you talking specifically on Main?
B Street.
On B Street?
Within their project area, of course.
Yeah, do you know which one he's talking about specifically? All right, hold on.
I believe you're talking about the median, the raised concrete median that was partly taken out?
No, I was referring to the current B Street, that's where motorists are traveling on right now.
Right.
You know, they had to cut that to trench across and all that. Are they gonna resurface the whole thing, or what are they gonna do? What's the
Yes.
plan there?
Yes, it'll be resurfaced. I believe it's half of the southerly half of the street will be redone, resurfaced.
Not the whole thing, just the southern part?
I believe so.
Okay.
So it'll match the north side.
Any other questions? Who? City council members, we'll start with Council Member Aguilar.
Okay, November 4th, I went out with the Rec Commission to do an inventory regarding our parks. Basically is to gather information to bring to our next meeting on November 29th to see where we could improve and talk about certain grants that we want to go after to make improvements in regards to like have a dog park or a skate park. So it was a nice inventory regarding all the parks. We visited every park, took photographs, and we'll be taking that information to our next meeting. And this invitation to everybody in the public, we have our next Rec Commission meeting on November 29th at 6 p.m. here at Council Chambers. So anybody's welcome to attend. It's a good way to get involved with the community. I got a lot of good things happening right now. Also on November 2nd, just want to give props to Jose, everybody, all the staff that were involved in the Livingston recognition banquet, first annual. Hopefully we could continue to do this on the annual basis. It was nice to see everybody there, different community members being recognized for all their efforts and involvement in the community. So it was a great event, and hopefully, like I said, we'll continue doing it on an annual basis. We partnered up with Zachary Ramos from and his nonprofit, the Traveling Library from Gastine, and we're actually collecting donations for the fire victims and firefighters up north. Captain, have they picked up the donations yet? No? Okay, so they're about to collect those, I believe, by tomorrow. So if you guys know of anybody or anybody out there wanting to donate any items, we're collecting them at the fire station. Also, just in regards to recreation, they've been doing the skills assessment for basketball. Basketball season's upon us. Another just quick reminder or advertisement for the rec department. There's a Livingston Court of trees. There's still trees available. They're $30 per tree. The deadline was on November 15th. However, there's still trees available, and it's basically out here in front of the chambers in the little park area. There's trees out there. Families could decorate, together during Christmas, and their prices associated to the best tree. And just say happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Have a safe Thanksgiving. I want to congratulate the city council members-elect. Looking forward to working with all of you. And congratulations to Mr. Zamra. Looking forward to working with you as well. And that's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Aguilar. Councilmember Sicaros.
Not much to report, just congratulations. Welcome aboard. And just wishing everybody a happy Thanksgiving.
Vice Mayor Samra.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of things. First of all, at our last LAFCO meeting, City of Gastine got their general plan approved to extend their city limits. And based on Mr. Hatch's reported all the activity that's been going on in Livingston, I believe we're almost out of land. So I would challenge and encourage the new folks coming in to immediately start working on extending our sphere and city limits, because it takes time. We don't want to run out of land before you get that done. So I think we should make that, of course, the new council can set their priorities of what they need, their projects when they come forward, but that one definitely needs to be one of them. So, and that's what I have, and wish everybody happy Thanksgiving. It's okay to get a couple of pounds during Thanksgiving, you know, save it for the summer, you know. And I also do want to thank, I just want to congratulate the incoming members. I look forward to working with everybody. I think we'll have a good time here and get a lot of things done for the folks. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I have a few things. Mosquito abatement meeting was canceled, so I have nothing to report on that. I want to thank everyone for attending the Veterans Parade. It was a nice turnout. Got to walk in the Veterans Parade, and thank you to the veterans. They provided some delicious soup at the Veterans Hall, so it was a nice turnout. It was nice to see the community come out and support our veterans. And if I can gather your attention to the back, there is a trophy. It is Clash of the Claws, and it's I coached youth football, and every year it's a rivalry between the city of Los Banos and the city of Livingston. They won it the last few times, and this time we beat Los Banos 42-0. JV and varsity won, so the kids really wanted that trophy. So Livingston is the smallest city in this league. We play teams from Modesto, Turlock, Merced, Atwater, so we play larger teams and sometimes even larger kids. So we do have great kids, that not only in academics but in sports too. So I want to thank everybody that supported youth football and cheer. We usually service anywhere from 300 to we've had up to 500 boys and girls in the youth football. So we do have kids that can play sports here, and they're also very bright. So thank you to the supervisor, chief, Mario, all the council who's supported the kids, Myers, Nave, Jose, and the city manager. So thank you for your support. So right now JV is practicing. We made the playoffs, but unfortunately Merced beat us. The JV is practicing. They have a good chance of winning the Super Bowl in the league. So we started a few years ago. Coach Alex Gonzalez from the high school reached out, and we decided to try and feed the high school the same plays and the same things that they're doing, so we can build a championship sports like we used to. So thank you to Coach Alex Gonzalez from the high school. So other than that, I haven't put the score on that trophy yet, but hopefully I'll have it there tomorrow. So we get to keep it a year, and I've asked if I could keep it here at City Hall, and then next year we'll play again, and maybe we'll invite both mayors to the game, and they can give the winner to the trophy to the kids. So I don't have anything else. Next, we'll move on to citizen comments. This section of the agenda allows members of the public to address the city council on any item not otherwise on the agenda. Members of the public, when recognized by the mayor, should come forward to the lectern and identify themselves. Comments are normally limited to 3 minutes. In accordance with state meeting laws, no action will be taken by the city council this evening. For items which are not on the agenda this evening, members of the public will be provided an opportunity to address the city council of each item as is brought up for discussion.
Thank you, Mayor, honorable board members, city councilmen, city manager. My name is Paul Garcia, and I'm a resident of Delhi, but with roots in Livingston. And I just wanted to say one thing. The light that's right here on Winton Way, okay, I guess it's out. I don't know if they're working on it or what, and that kind of prompted concern when I was coming this way. And it's so dark out here where they're doing the construction, right there where they're building the new clinic. And I just wanted to bring that as a concern. On the positive side, I really wanted to commend all the people that ran For mayor, city council, I congratulate you. Boy, I've seen a lot of competition. I said, well, you know what? If I would have moved to Livingston, maybe it would have rained, in other words, if I would have came and ran. But you know what? I congratulate all of you, and I hope that you would listen to the people here, the concerns that they bring up before the city council. And also, you're getting a great mayor. In other words, you know, I really congratulate him, and also the other people that are on the city council. I'm really impressed, not only with the signs, but keeping it very clean. And I'm really impressed with that. As one elected official to another, congratulations, and also a happy Thanksgiving. And if you do gain some weight, you got some beautiful parks out here that you can do some walking and lose weight. Thank you.
Thank you. And what was the district you were in that you? Water District? Okay, congratulations to you too.
Just to address the light out, Corporal King informed me that he actually wrote up the light out to be repaired, so Public Works on top of it. Okay, so thank you for bringing it to our attention, Paul.
Any more comments? Still open? All right, we'll go and close it at 8:35, and we will move on to the consent agenda. Item 6 has been moved for possibly continue to the next meeting. We have item 3, 4, 5, 7, and 8. 3, resolution of consideration to make changes to the rate and method of apportionment of special tax of the City of Livingston Community Facilities District Number 2017-1, Public Services. Resolution, item 4, resolution to create a new category to Livingston transactions for cannabis business license applicants. Item 5, resolution approve the purchase of a solar wireless in-ground lighted crosswalk system from Silicon Constellations to be installed at the crosswalk at F Street and Barcelona Drive. Item 7, approval of warrant register dated November 1st, 2018. Item 8, approval of warrant register dated November 15, 2018. Any motions?
Motion to approve the consent calendar?
I have a first from Vice Mayor Samra.
I second it.
Second from Councilmember Aguilar.
Roll call. Councilmember Aguilar?
Yes.
Councilmember Sicairos?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Samra?
Yes.
Mayor Soria?
Yes.
Motion approved.
All right, thank you. Next, we'll move on to successor agency discussion and potential action items. Item 9, resolution acting as a successor agency to the Livingston Redevelopment Agency, approving payment of $25,397.57 of redevelopment funds to the county auditor controller and adjusting off $255.16 of redevelopment agency vouchers payable.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and members of the council, Jerry Brown and the legislature a few years back did away with redevelopment agencies, and after some litigation, they were officially declared done February 1 of 2012. Since that time, the city became the successor agency of the redevelopment agency, and because of that, it had certain duties and obligations to wind down the affairs of that agency. And everything has been done. The Department of Finance has done a review of which a letter is attached that shows their findings. And the two things that they're saying they want the city as successor agency to do to resolve this is there's a little bit of tax increment money still sitting in that redevelopment agency fund. We need to send that over to the county auditor controller so they can actually disperse it out to the varying taxing agencies, of which actually the city of Livingston will get back a little piece of that. And then on the books, there is still an accounts payable which staff has looked at it and determined it's really owed to no one. It's just kind of a collection of nickels and dimes over the year that just kind of build up in that account and should have been adjusted off a long time ago. So what happens if the council approves this? This then will go to the oversight board. The oversight board can review it, and if they approve it, then they will pass it on to the state of California, the Department of Finance, saying the boxes have been checked, the things have been done, we're finished. And by then, the Department of Finance should issue a report that says, you're good, you're finished, nothing else is needed. So the recommendation tonight is the adoption of a resolution that will approve paying of this money to the auditor controller and writing off of this miscellaneous accounts payable. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Open up for public comment at 8:39. Any questions? All right, nobody coming forward. Bring it back to, close it at 8:39. Bring it back to council. I'll go and make a motion for approving paying the $25,397.57 to the county auditor and adjusting the 255.16 of redevelopment agency. Have a second?
I second.
A roll call, please.
Roll call. Councilmember Aguilar?
Yes.
Councilmember Siqueiros?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Samra?
Yes.
Mayor Soria?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Okay, thank you. Moving forward, we'll be moving item 12 and discussion and potential action items up before 10. Item 12 is a resolution approving the Department of Forestry Fire Protection Agreement number 7FG18063 for services for the date of last signatory on page 6 of the agreement as of to June 30th, 2019, under the Volunteer Fire Assistance Program of the Cooperative Forestry Assistance Act of 1978.
Mr. Mayor, out of abundance of caution, I will be recusing myself from this item. I am a volunteer firefighter and have no financial interest. However, because the item is regarding volunteer equipment, I will recuse myself.
All right, you can add Councilmember Aguilar.
And again, for the record, there's no financial interest in the item. It's the recusals for abundance of caution.
Yeah.
All right, before I get started, I just want to say thanks to the council members that are decided not to run, but thank you for your service that you've done for the last couple of years. Some of you has been a while, and so from the city of Livingston, from the fire department, we'd like to thank you and appreciate all the support that you had for us. So the good news about this project here is, or this grant that I'm talking to you about, it's already in our budget, so we're not asking for any more money. It's just that basically the CAL FIRE would like us to make sure that the council approves the motion, and so this way we could spend the money, and then they just give us half back. So it's a 50-50 match grant. We originally put in for $34,373, of which they approved $29,425. So half of that cost would be the $14,712.50. And what you'd be getting with that money, we'd be getting 8 set of structure gears. We'll get 20 wildland gloves, and we'll get basically 1 radio that we'll have for probably be putting that on the Type 6. So basically we'll be getting a discount on that radio since the state would be paying half of that. And so just for information, a set of structure gear for each person is about $3,500. And we try to have 2 sets of structure gear because we're on a call. If you get some, if they get dirty, any smoke or any blood or anything like that, we got to take it out of service to clean. And they're only good for 10 years. So by doing this, we're able to keep the volunteers with 2 sets of gears and rotate through to keep them NFPA compliant for the 10-year mark and at a discount to the city. So since the state will be paying half of that cost.
All right, thank you, Captain. Any comments or questions from public? bring it back to council.
Yeah, I don't see why we wouldn't do this. It's getting, paying 50% for the equipment, and now you can't get a better deal than that, you know, so.
No, it's a great deal, and I tried to get a little extra, and they decided
Yeah, I
not to
mean,
give me some of that
it's-
stuff.
And it is needed equipment. It's not like it's, you know, but, so, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make the motion that we adopt the resolution approving the Department of Forestry Fire Disagreement Number 7FG18063 for service from date of the last signatory on page 6 of the agreement to June 30th, 2019, under the Volunteer Fire System Program Cooperative Forestry Assistance Act of 1978, and authorize city manager to execute the agreement on behalf of the city of Livingston.
First from Vice Mayor,
I'll second.
and second from Councilmember Sicaros.
Roll call. Councilmember Sicaros.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Samra.
Yes.
Mayor Soria.
Yes.
Motion approved, 3-0 to 1.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. If you can show Councilmember Aguilar is back. And we'll move on to item 11, resolution adopting the City of Livingston compensation and classification study.
Yes, I'll take a little moment here to make a little pause for the new council members elects. So it's been probably 10 or more years since a classification and compensation study was done. And so we decided to embark on a classification and compensation study. And then council added a benefits survey, which was incorporated. So we piggybacked so that we got a deal, because the MCAG, which is the Merced County Association of Governments, was actually doing a compensation and classification study. So we were able to basically piggyback on their best price, and so we were able to get everything for a real reasonable price. So anyways, fast forwarding, they went ahead and completed the classification compensation study and survey study. What's before tonight is I would like to have council adopt the classification and compensation study. This does not incorporate any increases to any of the personnel based on their recommendations. This is only adopting the classification and the compensation matrix that they provided. So I have asked all of the bargaining groups for feedback and input, invited them to the actual sessions. Oh, and by the way, there was an actual committee that was put forward that there was representatives from the different groups that made up this committee. And so so far no comments have been brought forward or received, and what I would like is for council to adopt this document with some possible minor revisions based on any input that any of the bargaining groups might have. I don't foresee any major obstacles, and if so, then I can always come back to council. But at this point, I think that we're in pretty good shape. I haven't heard any issues.
Okay. In the absence of the mayor, I will say this item is open to the public. Does anybody from the audience wish to speak on this item? If not, the item is not closed to the public. I'll bring it back to the council. Mr. Aguilar? Okay, we've been through this before, and, yeah, and the mayor's coming out here now. I took temporary, so we're just waiting for your comment now on classification. Yeah, warmed it up. Yep, there you go. Yeah. So, Mr. Ward, at Mayor's comments on the classification and compensation.
Well, I think my comments, the classification study was definitely needed. It should bring us, up to par and competitive, and we do have great employees. It's the backbone of the city, so we appreciate all the hard work. It doesn't go unnoticed. So that's my comment, and bring it back to any motions.
Mr. Mayor, I make the motion that we adopt the resolution adopting the classification and compensation study and prepared by UN Consulting.
Okay, I have a first from Vice Mayor.
I'll second.
Second from Councilmember Sicaros. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Councilmember Aguilar.
Yes.
Councilmember Siqueiros.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Samra.
Yes.
Mayor Soria.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Mr. Mayor, I previously erroneously got number 11 before 10, and Chief was correct, so my apologies, Chief. I didn't mean to put number 11 before 10, so. Well, see, that's that distraction. That's what it was. It's that distraction of the mustache.
All right. We'll go ahead and go to 10. We have our Chief of Police.
Yeah, after Thanksgiving, we're all going to have to get out on the trails and walk. So although the city of Livingston doesn't have a lot of trails, this ordinance will basically bring it up to compliance with ADA regulations. Basically, it's just going to add one sentence. Currently, I think it's Gallo has a hiking trail. They passed an ordinance that required cities to provide access to trails by other power-driven mobility devices. So basically, a person who has needs an extra device to get around in the parks on the trails can actually go in there with like an ATV type vehicle, where currently it's prohibited. So basically, brings our ordinance up to compliance with ADA regulations. So I want to thank our city attorney staff for helping develop the ordinance and the resolution on this.
I thank you, Chief. Open to the public for any comments, questions? Okay, we'll bring it back for comments or motions.
Go for it. Go for it. Go on.
I'll go and make a motion to waive the first reading of this ordinance,
You got on your money, man.
amending the city municipal code to formally permit the use of parking of other power-driven mobility devices, OPD, MD, within the city's parks and recreation areas. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Councilmember Sicaros. Roll call, please.
Okay. Roll call. Councilmember Aguilar.
Yes.
Councilmember Siqueiros.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Samra.
Yes.
Mayor Soria.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. We'll see you on the trails on Friday morning.
Looks like we are on item 13. Resolution increasing the budget to appropriate $250,000 of the water capital unappropriated fund balance for fiscal year 2018-2019.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and members of the council, at the October 16, 2018 meeting of the council, a resolution was passed that adopted a mitigated negative declaration for the city's 123 TCP removal treatment system project. The estimated cost of this project is $12 million, and it was briefly mentioned this evening, but the money is to come from a loan from the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. At the same meeting, there were also resolutions that were passed that authorized the city manager to file a financial assistance application with the state and a resolution to reimburse for expenditures ahead of the approval of the disbursement of the state funds. After talking to the engineer after the last meeting, he felt that we probably needed some budget authority between now and when we get the agreement in place with the state, because there's going to be some engineering costs, there's going to be some planning costs, and there's more than enough money in the Water Capital Fund to cover this, but we needed a specific action by the council to put that into the budget, since there was nothing in the adopted budget to kind of spend money to get this project going. So what the recommendation is for this evening is to adopt a resolution which increases the budget appropriation $250,000 in the Water Capital Fund for this year, 2018-2019. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Open for public comment or questions?
Probably already know what I'm going to ask. My question is, this $250,000 that's coming out of the Water Capital Fund, that's going to be coming out of the TCP settlement money that we have? And then is the intent to reimburse that money back into the fund when we get the loan from the state?
The very short answer is yes. Yes.
Thank you for your question. Any other comments or questions? Okay, I'll bring it back to council for comments or motions.
I'll make a motion to approve a resolution to increase the budget to appropriate $250,000 of the Water Capital Unappropriated Fund balance for fiscal year 2018-2019.
First from Councilmember Aguilar, and I will go ahead and second it. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Councilmember Aguilar.
Yes.
Councilmember Siqueiros.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Samra.
Yes.
Mayor Soria.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Our microphones. Next, we have item 14, resolution increasing the budget to appropriate $295,000 of the Economic Opportunity Fund unappropriated fund balance for fiscal year 2018/2019.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and members of the council, starting with the 2017-18 budget, the council approved taking some of our general fund money and setting it over into an economic opportunity fund that could be used for creating or retaining jobs, supporting growing the incomes and the tax base. With the 18-19 budget, the council approved adding more money to that economic opportunity fund. So at this point in time, we have $295,000 in there. Up to this point in time, we've just been accumulating the money. There was no appropriation of that money. But now that there are some funds in there, we think it's appropriate that we put it into the budget as an appropriation, which will give the city manager the opportunity to use that as he and the council sees fit to promote the economic growth of the city. So the recommendation is to adopt a motion which would increase the budget to appropriate the money that's in that economic opportunity fund, the $295,000, and that would be for fiscal year 18-19. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Brad. Open to public comment or questions.
Catherine Shell Rodriguez, P.O. Box 163. When I hear the word like appropriate, I think of spending it or using it. Is that the intent of this resolution, that you're planning on spending it during the next budget year? And if so, on what? A land purchase or what?
It's kind of a two-step process. Appropriate doesn't mean it's spent. Appropriate means you are now given the legal ability to spend it. And I know there are certain projects that are kind of in the wings. I don't know if we're able to speak about those this evening, but there are some opportunities that money could be very useful to help promote those particular economic opportunities.
Correct. So, thank you, Catherine, for that question. So there is some projects that are in the chipper, but we're prohibited from mentioning it at this point, but it will be something that in the very near future we'll be able to share. And in a future council meeting, we will certainly communicate that out. So thank you again for your question.
Any other questions? I'll bring it back to council. Comments or motions?
Oh, and then, of course, Councilmember-elects, you will be privy to that information when I have an opportunity to catch up with you guys.
I thank you, Jose.
All right, I'll make a motion to adopt adopting the resolution increasing the budget to appropriate $295,000 of the Economic Opportunity Fund unappropriated fund balance for fiscal year 2018/2019.
First from Councilmember Sicaros.
I second it.
Second from Councilmember Aguilar. Roll call, please.
Okay, roll call. Councilmember Aguilar.
Yes.
Councilmember Siqueiros.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Samra.
Yes.
Mayor Soria.
Yes.
Motion approved, 4-0.
Next, we have item 15, resolution adopting the regulatory fee study for cannabis business prepared by SCI Consulting Group and adopting the commercial cannabis permit fee schedule and rescinding resolution number 2018-11.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members, city staff, and members of the general public. My name is Neil Hall. I'm with SCI Consulting Group, and we've been working with the city on developing these regulatory fees for several months. These are not something that you can just haphazardly do. We need to make these Proposition 26 and 218 compliant, and we also need to make sure that we have input from city staff on the amount of time that will be involved in conducting the activities. So what we're looking at is the full cost recovery, as I probably said, and it's been several months since I initially presented to the council, that we don't expect that if you implement cannabis activities here on a commercial basis, that the city should bear those costs. Those costs need to be borne by the industry. And to that end, we have developed regulatory fees for not only those activities which you're allowing by ordinance, but also if in time you decide to allow any other activities currently allowed by the state but prohibited by the city, that you have those fees in place as well. So we have a resolution and a fee study for the council to look at. It establishes fees for not only the regulatory process, those inspections, the monitoring and compliance of those facilities, but also of the application process, which is by necessity pretty comprehensive, not only at the state level, but also at the local level. And I will tell you that as a consultant, we're working with about 30 different cities and counties from up in the city of Shasta Lake down to La Mesa and Encinitas in San Diego County on these types of things. So while there is no template that can be used, we are doing inspections, and my colleague Arcelia Herrera, who's here tonight, and has done a lot of the work on this, actually just conducted our typical routine inspections in the city of Coalinga last week for their dispensary and their manufacturing operations. So we do know what we need to be looking for based on your local regulations and state regulations. And so we were able to use staff costs to account for that and establish the fees. So what you're allowing here are cultivation indoor up to 10,000 square feet, nurseries, manufacturing, volatile and non-volatile, and distribution and testing. So those are the ones that are allowed. As I said, go ahead and go forward, Arcelia. We have included in the fees the retail, which you are not allowing here, but there are fees that would be associated with that. We don't want you to have to pay us down the line or somebody else to do it. So we included that in the what we did. We'll go through, I know these may seem high, typical businesses don't pay these types of either application or regulatory fees, but because of the industry not being regulated at the federal level at this point in time, and the fact that if you're not aware of it, SB 1459 was passed by the state legislature, they're having trouble keeping up as well. We want to make sure that you have the money to have a robust inspection and application process take place at the local level. You can see they range from about $1,500 for the phase 1 application through a $5,800 fee for a phase 2 application review, which is much more intensive than that phase 1 is. Also, we built in the appeal fees in case there are appeals of those application processes, which we do see from time to time in different municipalities. We've not encountered any ourselves, but I know they are out there. And then in the regulatory fees, you can see they range from about $7,600 up to $25,000. Again, I know these sound like a lot, but you'll see as I show you some of the slides on other municipalities and what the state currently charges in regulatory fees, that these are typical for this industry right now. So we didn't just, again, pull these fees out of our pocket. We actually, this is just a section of a list for a cannabis monitoring and compliance for a particular activity. We developed one of these sheets that is about 6 pages long for every one of the commercial activities that we reviewed for regulatory fees. And we put in the number of hours for the different positions that would be responsible for them, and that's how we arrived at those fees. And that was one thing I know from my initial meeting with the council that you were very concerned about, that we just didn't pick up a fee, that we actually have a spreadsheet that includes all of those. Go ahead, Arcelia. So these are the fees for applications from some of the other municipalities. Some of them we work with, City of Shasta Lake, Davis, Coalinga, Merced. These are current clients of ours. And you can see they range anywhere from about $600 in the City of Shasta Lake to about $9,000 or $12,000 in the City of Thousand Oaks. But they're spread all over depending on the local regulations and what they require in those application forms. These are some of the regulatory fees that you see up and down the state. And as you can see, in some of the cities, they're as high as $60,000, $65,000 for some of the manufacturing operations. The state also levies that charge based on the income of those groups. But there is a lot of money in this particular industry right now. We don't know if that will change. And again, San Carlos, Shasta Lake, Davis, and Coalinga, those are all current clients. Santa Barbara, Greenfield are not. These are just the fees that they charge in those cities. Go ahead. So it's not a long or involved presentation, but I'll be happy to answer any questions you all have.
Thank you. Open up for any public comments or questions. None. Bring it back to council. Any comments? Motions?
Okay, I make the motion that we adopt the resolution adopting the City of Livingston Cannabis Regulatory Fee Study prepared by SCI Consulting Group and adopting the Commercial Cannabis Permit Fee Schedule.
Have a first from Vice Mayor Samra. Second.
I second.
Second from Councilmember Aguilar. Roll call, please.
Okay, roll call. Councilmember Aguilar.
Yes.
Councilmember Siqueiros.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Samra.
Yes.
Mayor Soria.
Yes.
Motion approved.
I thank you for your hard work and your presentation. And moving forward, we'll be on item 16. Resolution approving a 3-year professional services agreement for planning services and authorizing the CM to execute agreement with Collins and Schottler,
Yeah. Collins
planning
and Shet-
consultants.
Yeah, Honorable Mayor and Council and council members-elect. As you know, we've been working with Collins and Shetler for several years. Randy, who's one of the contracted employees, works for Collins and Shetler. Their contract has expired, so we're looking at a $5 increase for the first year, and then it remains the same for the following 2 years. And so for continuity purposes, and we would like to continue to work with them. And pretty much that's it, unless you have any questions for me.
I thank Jose. Open for public comment, questions? None, we'll bring it back to council.
Mr. Mayor, I think our current consultant's been doing a good job, and right now with all this development going on, changing a horse in mid-stride doesn't always work. It may be a little higher in fees, but the institutional knowledge offsets a lot of that. So I think we should go ahead and continue with what we have right now. Right now, this is comments, so let everybody else speak.
Any other comments?
I'm in agreement with that, definitely. They've been doing a great job since I've been here in the council, and I think it's important to continue that.
I gotta agree with that. Anybody, if you're not gonna I'll make a motion. Mayor, you want to comment on it?
I agree. Randy's done a good job in the company, and we appreciate the hard work. And moving on to a new year, so we have a motion from Councilmember Siqueiros.
You want me to read it, right? I'd make a motion to adopt resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a 3-year professional service agreement for planning services with Collins and social planning consultants.
Have a first from Councilmember Siqueiros, second.
I second it.
Second from Councilmember Aguilar. Roll call, please.
Okay, roll call. Councilmember Aguilar.
Yes.
Councilmember Siqueiros.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Samra.
Yes.
Mayor Soria.
Yes.
Motion approved.
All right, this concludes our city council meeting for November 20th. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Drive safely home. Go home and love your family. Have a good evening.